Realize that I've been in your eyes some kind of fool. What I do, what I did, stupid fish, I drank the pool.
Good afternoon and welcome to Chapel FM Radio Theatre on the third day of Writing on Air. And we've had some wonderful stuff already today, fantastic discussion about disability and recovery. Earlier this morning I will mention a programme called Sibling on the Spectrum, which is one of the best things we've had on Writing on Air. I think it's just fantastic. Do listen to it. You can listen to it again, probably tomorrow morning. Now though, we have something equally special. We have Len Biran. Please give him a big round of applause.
My voice gets quite tired by this time. My brain gets quite tired at this time. So I thought we'll start with a little bit of voice stretch. And I have a demonstrator with me. So, ready, demonstrator? Okay. Him.
Him.
The audience.
Ja. Ik doe het again.
Him.
Him.
Hum.
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 Shish.
Shish.
Shishke.
Shishke.
Shish kebab.
Shish kebab.
Shish kebabu.
Shish kebabu.
Shish kebabu tofu.
Shish kebabu tofu.
Shish kebabu tofu no.
Shish kebabu tofu no.
Don't tofu me.
Don't tofu me.
Just don't.
Just don't.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. So, thank you for being here. My story is called Elegant Solutions. It's about my father. I have a tiny photo of my father and mother that I treasure. The year is 1930. My future parents are in their 20s on a kayaking holiday amongst the pines and lakes of the Polish Lake District. She, a ballet dancer, is naked. She's performing a bridge on the limb of a tree that juts out over the lake. The sky is blue, the water is blue. Her belly button is looking up at the blue sky. Her face is smiling. My father is standing next to her, his tailored swimming trunks bulging with desire. They are happy. They are elegant. But the clouds of hate are gathering. Soon it will be time for a different kind of elegance. It will be time to devise a string of elegant solutions to terrifying problems of survival. My father had this kind of elegance. His twists and turns and subterfuges echo those of many refugees today. So, on with my story. Kraków, Poland, 1939. Hitler is about to invade Poland. My parents are Jewish. They face their first survival puzzle. Will those civilized, cultured Germans really set about killing Jews? For so many Jews, the solutions to this puzzle were surely not. Perhaps not. Wait and see. My father had a different solution. On 3rd September 1939, as Hitler's tanks drive into Poland from the west, my father is driving east. He's driving a horse cart. On the cart are his father, his brother, his wife, and me, aged 2.5. We reach eastern Poland. No Germans yet. This was my father's first elegant solution. The proof that he was right is right here in front of you, me. I am alive. Eastern Poland, 1939. Stalin and Hitler partition Poland. Eastern Poland becomes part of the Soviet Union. We are offered Soviet citizenship. Those that refuse will become enemies of the people and will be sent to Siberia. My father refuses. He fears that if he accepts, he will never get out again. So it's Siberia, a labor camp in the taiga, the vast Russian coniferous forest. Siberia, 1940. We are now prisoners. My father is a pharmacist, so he becomes the camp pharmacist. And then my father is summoned by the NKVD, the feared political police. He's told to report weekly and in secret on any subversive talk that comes to his attention. You don't say no to NKVD. But for my father, becoming a snitch is not an option either. So what to do? Comes his next elegant solution. He puts up a big notice saying, "This is a pharmacy. No talking. You would disturb the pharmacist." The NKVD can't object, and the inmates soon guess what this is about. My father is now an NKVD informer, but he would have nothing to report, even under duress. As an NKVD informer, my father can now obtain goods in the NKVD store. I remember some wonders that I had as a result. Wow, I had balloons for my 4th birthday. Balloons in a prison camp? Yes. Even if they were skin-colored and had an odd long shape with a teat on the end. Siberia, 1941. In 1941, Germany attacks the Soviet Union. Stalin now sees Poland, US, and UK as allies. The prison camp is dissolved. My father's dream now is to get us out of the Soviet Union somehow. His plan is to travel south to the Soviet border with Afghanistan, and then to be smuggled across the border over the Pamir Mountains. That border is 3,000 miles from our camp. So first we need to get to that border. In wartime Russia, you didn't just buy a ticket and travel. You stayed put, unless you had an order to travel, a putyovka. Somehow, my father is put in charge of an empty cattle truck and is given a putyovka. With his putyovka, he is authorized to attach our truck to passing goods trains. He loads us and 2 other families into the cattle truck, and we set off. We journey west, we journey east, we journey south. We journey west, we journey east, we journey south. We spend days and nights camping on station platforms. We get hot water by bribing the train drivers to open the safety valves on their engines. 3 weeks later, we pitch up in Bukhara, in Uzbekistan. We are much nearer to that Afghan border. Only 600 miles to go. So that elegant solution is now in progress. Bukhara, 1942, a change of plans. A Polish army is now being recruited in the Soviet Union by US and UK. One day, it will leave the Soviet Union. It will leave to fight Germans in Europe. The army needs a pharmacist. My father joins up. Caspian Sea, between Uzbekistan and Azerbaijan, 1943. The recruits to the future Polish army are leaving the Soviet Union. They are being ferried across the Caspian Sea to the British-dominated Iran. We await our turn. But finally, the last ship is leaving, and we are not on its passenger list. The Polish officer in charge of the ferrying tells us there is no room for Jews. Tajikistan, 1943, back to the drawing board. Somehow, my father manages to transport us by train and lorry from the Caspian Sea to the Soviet Republic of Tajikistan and its border with Afghanistan. Leaving the Soviet Union is nearly within our grasp. We are even preparing provisions for the trek over the mountains. But then we are warned that the Soviet Union watches the Tajik-Afghan border especially closely. And the border guards shoot on sight. So, plan failed, we stay in Tajikistan. Will the war never end? Shall we ever get out? Tajikistan, 1945. I lose my father. May 1945, end of war, victory. The Poles will be transported back to Poland. My father has beautiful handwriting, so he writes out the travel documents for the Polish community in Tajikistan, but not for himself. His name is not on the list. An error was made in Moscow, 3,000 miles away. If my father misses the official repatriation train, he may never get out. The repatriation train leaves with my mother and me on board. My father is left behind. Tajikistan, 1945, syphilis to the rescue. Let me take you a step back in time. America has been helping the Polish people exiled to Tajikistan since 1943. We were getting American food and some very precious American medicines. Amongst the medicines was the newly discovered penicillin, the new wonder drug. Penicillin that could cure almost any infection, even syphilis, for which there was no cure at that time. Would it cure the Prime Minister's syphilis? My father treats the Prime Minister, and yes, it worked. My father gains a friend for life. So now, in 1945, my father calls on his friend, the Prime Minister, and the Prime Minister goes into action. The error that the bureaucrats in Moscow made is rectified, and the Prime Minister flies my father in his official plane to catch up with the repatriation train. We are reunited. I was 9. I remember the worry of that separation and the joy of that meeting. We returned to Krakow. Hooray! Krakow, post-war, 1946. Post-war Poland was an unhappy place. Its administration was ineffective and corrupt, but you had to pretend that everything was wonderful. The secret police were watching, like the East German Stasi. Anti-Semitism was ever present and deadly. On 4th July 1946, in Kielce, near Krakow, there was a pogrom, a killing spree. 37 Jews were murdered, another 35 wounded. But getting out of Poland was impossible. We had no hope of improvement or escape. Krakow, 1949. Hope again. The State of Israel sprang up a year earlier in 1948. It is full of kibbutzim, Jewish agricultural communes. Stalin sees Israel as his future communist outpost in the capitalist, colonialist Middle East. So, in 1949, Polish Jews are allowed to leave Poland for Israel. But my parents know that professionals like my father will not be allowed to leave. Still, they apply, but they give false details. If the police find out, it would be the end. My parents would go to prison, and I, who knows where. My father places a desperate bet on the inefficiency of the police. If the police don't suspect that we are planning to emigrate, perhaps we shall slip through the net. For months we hide our fear and behave as though leaving Poland is the last thing on our minds. But then one day, one sunny day, our permits to leave arrive. In secret, to the last minute, we board the train to freedom. Israel, 1950. For the 13-year-old me, Israel is a wonderful country, democratic, optimistic, no anti-Semitism. I feel at home. But my father's pharmaceutical qualifications are not recognized. He's a storekeeper and a night guard, and we cannot make ends meet. We need yet another elegant solution. A relative who trades with Ethiopia hears that Emperor Haile Selassie needs a pharmacist administrator for his country's medical stores. My father would be perfect for the job. Someone whispers into someone's ear, and my father becomes the pharmacist to His Imperial Majesty Haile Selassie. We are given a house, 2 cars, a servant. I attend school with the elite. Addis Ababa, 1952. Our joy lasted mere 9 months. What the hell? It turned out, shut up. It turned out that the imperial pharmaceutical stores were a source of corrupt income for 2 princes, the Minister of Finance and the Minister of Health. The princes expected the royal pharmacist to facilitate their thieving. My father refused. And so one day when the emperor was away, an army lorry pulled up outside our house early in the morning, and we were told to get on at gunpoint. In frightening silence, expecting the worst, we were driven. Not where we feared, but to the airport. We were put on a plane to Israel. Nairobi, 1952. The plane stopped in Nairobi to refuel. My father's elegant problem-solving went into overdrive for the last time. In the few hours that the plane stood on the tarmac, he obtained a job and permission to stay. How? Search me. We stayed. We stayed. My father's job would now provide enough income for us to live on. I would become an ordinary schoolboy in an ordinary school. For the first time in my life, I would spend more than 1 year in one school. My father's dream had been all along to enable me to have an ordinary childhood. This dream would now be fulfilled. Krakow today. Anti-Semitism, especially Polish anti-Semitism, has been ever present in my story. But let's remember, there were many Poles who saved Jews. Amongst them was my mother's closest friend from before the war. Basia, and my voice breaks when I talk about her. Anyway, Basia and her family, they hid my 6-year-old cousin right through the war. 5 long years. In those 5 years, any day might have been their last. In Krakow today, there is a small but flourishing and confident Jewish community. There is a joyous annual summer festival of Jewish culture. Some 20,000 Poles come to the street gala on its last evening. For your next holiday, try a visit to Poland and the Festival of Jewish Culture. Thank you.
Writing, to me, is just sinking through my fingers. So thought Isaac Asimov. What do you think?